Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Passion and Purpose Hub. My name is Tunde Kukoyi, and this is the channel where we share useful knowledge to help you maximize your passions and your purpose so you enjoy not just success but also fulfillment in your personal lives. Now, this is the Passionate Professional series, and we're currently on episode 7. And our guest for today is none other than Roger Fairhead, and he's already in the studio and is here to add value to our lives. Now, this Passionate Professional series was created so that we can get people who are living beyond their potential. They're living out their potential. They are making a difference out there in the world. Get some inspiring interviews with them and to get these people to inspire us to live bigger, better, and more significant lives. That's the main reason why this show has been created. And I hope that we're adding some value to you. Now, just before I bring up our guest for today, I just wanted to share a reflection with you today. And the reflection is this: what are you passionate about? We say this is the Passionate Professional series, but what are you passionate about? Now, if you check the dictionary meaning of passion, it will say it's the things you love. And there's nothing wrong with your passions being the things you love. When I ask you what you're passionate about, you talk about things that you're passionate about in the sense that you love doing them. But do you know that the word passion actually comes from the Latin word passio, which means to suffer or to endure? And that also means that something that you're passionate about should be something that you're willing to either suffer for or even endure challenges in. And that's why sometimes you need to be sure of what you're passionate about. And why am I telling you all of this? Many people when say they're passionate about things, but when you face challenges, they shrink and they shrivel away and they stop being passionate about that. But when you say you're passionate about something, you should be able to endure whatever comes your way because, as one of the quotes says, endurance is one of the most difficult things, but it is the one that truly endures to the end. It is to that person that final victory comes. So my charge or my reflection for you today is this: if you say you're truly passionate about something, then you should be willing to endure challenges and see them through and make sure that they do not become obstacles in your way. Now I'll go ahead and introduce our guest for today. Like I was just saying, this is the Passionate Professional series, and our guest for today is someone who's passionate about leadership, is passionate about communication, and I'll go ahead and bring up his bio on stage. Right. So our guest for today is Roger Fairhead. And Roger is a leadership specialist and he uses the prize winning leadership model to help leaders improve their effectiveness and that of their teams through remote and on site delivery of keynotes, group training events, and individual coaching sessions. He is the author of several books, including Prize Winning Leadership and Personal Productivity Planner. He's a chartered engineer and is a fellow of the Institute of Leadership and Management and is a fellow of the Professional Speakers Association United Kingdom with extensive experience in project management and sales. Rogers articulates, he tracks complex issues with ease, and he has an incredible gift for raising pearls of wisdom out of the murky depths of people and process. His passion, we're talking about passion again. His passion is to help people to learn effective leadership skills, to lead their teams, to capitalize on their strengths and passions to realize their dreams. He also invests in the dreams of families in the world's underserved communities to offer them small loans that empower them to invest in their future and to provide for their families and give back to their communities. So join me as I welcome to the virtual stage, Roger Fairhead. Hi, Roger. How are you doing today?
Hi, Tunde. It's great to see you again. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Thank you.
Great, great. I hope you've had a lovely day so far. Enjoyed the weather.
It's been brilliant. We've been out for Matsuo, and I have been out for a walk this morning. We had a lovely walk around one of the local parks. Yeah, it's been a great day.
Good. I think it's something that we should all do. Like, I don't get to go on walks or exercise regularly, but I think weekends are a good opportunity for everyone to get your legs stretched and get in the cardio, get in the at least 200 minutes of active walking, because that's how we keep fit, isn't it? Sometimes we're drawn into the new kind of life, but we don't do a lot of exercise. But yeah, I think that's something that is good. You've just and sometimes when you do that, it sets your week in motion for a productive week. And I find that when I do things like exercise or go out on a walk, I get inspiration. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the same for you as well. You get ideas that you probably wouldn't find when you're just sitting in your house. So welcome to the Passionate Professional series, and thanks for honoring this invitation. I know that there are thousands of places that you could have been, but you decided to come and join us on this show. Thank you so much. So we're just going to jump right in. I think there's someone, at least someone watching live now, and the first question people will ask is, who is Roger Fairhead? And I think that's a fair question to address at the beginning of our discussion together. Who are you? I know I've read out your bio, but people still want to know, who's Roger? Where is he from? What does he do? So if you're happy to tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. So my name's Roger Fairhead. I'm a leadership specialist, and I help difference makers make a difference. That's my passion in life. My passionate profession is to help difference makers make a difference. People who want to make a real, genuine difference in the world, I want to help them do that. To do that, I use a model that I've used, that I've developed really over the years, that draws on some of the best leadership thoughts, ideas, and principles. I think of the tips, thoughts, ideas, and principles that I've come across. And I wrote a book recently which describes those ideas that I've come across, those tips, and it's called Prize Winning Leadership. The idea is that the prize is the thing that you're really seeking to achieve. So how do you achieve that prize? So that's a little bit of a start. I live in Staffordshire, North Staffordshire, just north of Stoke-on-Trent, and I have a wife, Sue, and we have 2 lovely children.
Wow, thank you so much for that brief introduction. I love the statement you opened with, and you said you help difference makers make a difference. Can you tell us more about that? Who are difference makers and how can they make a difference?
Yeah, I think the difference makers I was thinking about this some while ago, and I was thinking about who are the people I like to work with, and who are the people that I've usually ended up working with and really got on well with, and they've found best value in what I can share. And we figured out that it was people who were passionate about the purpose that they were pursuing. It was people whose purpose in life was bigger than just making a profit. There's quite a lot of talk these days about the people involved in your business and about sustainability, looking after the planet. So people, planet, and profit. John Elkington coined that phrase over 20 years ago. But it's people who've got that passion, which is about doing something to make a real, genuine, sustainable, long-term difference.
Wow. Again, it just seems like everything you say, I'm just picking nuggets from it. And you say difference makers are people who are passionate about a purpose, and coincidentally, this is the passion and purpose of. And I believe that we all need to have a purpose. We all need to have something that we're passionate about. I know on face value, you see the Passionate Professional series, you think it's all about career. Yes, it's somewhat about career, but again, it's also about having your passions and having a purpose. And because that's the only way you can make a difference, isn't it? So tell us, I know you've said this before, but again, tell us, just for the sake of reiteration, tell us the things that you're passionate about.
For me, the things that I'm passionate about, well, professionally, there are 3 primary areas in my professional life that I'm really passionate about. The first is helping you learn. And I distinguish that from teaching. If I teach and you've learned nothing, then I've taught, I've done my job. But if my job is to help you learn and you learn nothing, I haven't done my job. And I've had that ethos right the way through everything I've done. And in fact, it was an exercise I did some years ago that drew this out and brought it to my attention, really, about what does my history tell me. Steve Jobs, he at the commencement address to Stanford University, one of the things he talked about was, he said, you can only join the dots looking backwards.
Yeah.
And I found that looking backwards in my life, pretty much everything I've done, I've taught, from being a professional ice skating instructor in my teens through to teaching music, teaching tech, teaching leadership, teaching project management. So the first is helping you learn. The second thing that I'm passionate about is leadership, and not just any leadership, it's sustainable leadership that's going to endure over time, and is going to make a positive, beneficial effect on the people around us. So it's not just it's beyond just making a profit. It's making a difference and adding value to people's lives, and not destroying the planet in the process. And the third area of passion for me is to do with tech. I graduated as an electronic and electrical engineer. I spent much of my early career building control systems for various industrial processes. And so the tech has been something I just love playing with. And so I try it where I can join all three. So helping you learn sustainable leadership and tech, sometimes known as Industry 4.0 now. It's like the fourth industrial revolution is really starting to emerge. Now we're emerging from COVID, and that's a fascinating place to be.
I find that really interesting. I mean, that you have that well defined, the three of them. The first is helping people learn. The second is sustainable leadership. The third is technology. Do you think it's possible to fuse all three? Are there times are able to fuse all three, or are there three standalones that you kind of like address at different points in your life?
Well, I really enjoy when I can bring all three together. Sometimes it's one or two. Over the last 12 months, for 12, 18, in fact, for the last two years, over 2.5 years, I've been involved with the Global Leadership Network, which is an organization that runs in-person events. Now, we had to change tack slightly 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, of course, like everybody did. And I was then able to, so the Global Leadership Network is bringing leadership training and development to people across the UK. So there was the helping you learn, that's bringing information for people to consume and to engage with. It's to do with leadership principles, but it was also the tech, because we ran, I don't know, something like 40 events over the last 2 years, and pretty much all of them came from this desk.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's a good thing, like when your passions, you're able to fuse what you do with your passions. I mean, that's a sweet spot to be in. So I think we'll come to the bit of leadership in a bit, because I think that's something I'm really interested in. Technology, maybe not as much, I'll be honest, but leadership, we'll come to that bit very shortly. People I speak to, I always try to find out from them, because for me, it's more like a learning session as well. When I speak to people, it's not just about putting the show up there for other people. I also want to learn. So I always ask people, like, what are your values when I interview people? Because I want to learn, like, how has this value helped you along your way? So if I asked you, Roger, with all your experience in leadership communication, what are your values? What are some people say your top 5, your non-negotiables? What are they?
Well, I can give you my top 3, because I rate top 3, and I use an acronym PIE to help me remember what they are. It's passionate about a purpose. It's integrity, because genuine integrity leads to the influence, and it's empathy. So being empathetic, really getting on with people around you.
Right. Sorry if I'm having a break. I'm also writing, to be honest, because I don't know, for some reason I think I retain things best when I write, even though I can just But for me, I think writing again, you are bringing it to life the second time. Right. So passionate about purpose, integrity, and empathy. I think I resonate with all of them. But empathy, tell us a bit more about empathy. Why should we be more empathetic, especially in today's world where it seems we've gone digital? We don't really need. Some people feel that you don't really need that personal connection. What's the place of empathy in today's world?
Well, I think my personal view is that you always need empathy. You always need to, particularly in the world that I live in, which is helping people learn about leadership. Leadership is all about understanding the people you're leading. Leadership isn't about me. Leadership is about the people I'm leading, and helping them to catch the passion of the purpose that we've set out to achieve. And then in fact, one of the definitions that I have for leadership is all about turning have to into want to. I talk about the prize. Do you remember I mentioned the prize in prize winning leadership? This thing that we're going to aspire to achieve. A prize I would define as an inspiring image of the future that produces in people and turns have to into want to. So really, unless you can understand where people are coming from, what their background is, what their problems are, what their challenges are, unless you can see their worldview, then it's going to be really, really difficult to engage with them and to connect with them and to be able to have some kind of influence in their lives, in helping everybody in the organization to become aligned, to work together and work towards achieving that thing for which we're passionate about.
Right. So I love that. I love that. I love that definition of leadership. I don't know if you've been using that definition or if it just came out, but you did say that leadership is not about you as a leader. It's about the people you're leading. And I think that's one thing that many people do not get as leaders. They think it's all about them. Not in the sense that they're proud, but they're always saying, "How would they see me? Well, when I make this decision, what would they think of me?" Things like that. But they're not thinking about the people that they are called to lead. And I find even leading small teams where I work as well, I find it's quite difficult in helping people switch from that have to mentality to want to mentality. But just like you rightly said, empathy, that sense of connection, because if you're not really connected to people, then you can't really influence them. And yeah, I totally agree with you with that value of empathy. I also like the value of integrity because it has to be your best friend. Integrity, especially in this world, is a non-negotiable. And yeah, I also love the one being passionate about purpose. I, I think it's combining two into one, like passionate about purpose, because purpose on itself it's a loaded word, but again, being passionate about purpose, I really like that as a value. So how then on the, because values are kind of like things that they're like overarching principles, if I can put it that way, that you've internalized. But on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the productive habits that help you live out these values? What are some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis that helps you to live out your values?
Really, things I do on a day-to-day basis. Well, the first and most important thing I think is to understand that not all hours are created equal. And but what I mean by that is that I find that I'm most productive in the mornings. I'm most creative in the mornings. Those 3 or 4 hours in the morning, the first part of the day, are the days that I want to guard. And in fact, we talked about tech. I have an online calendar that people can book into, but I guard those hours in the morning up until 11 o'clock, so nobody can access them, except in special circumstances. I don't. It's not.
Yeah.
Guard that special time. I think probably the second habit that I have is getting out to do something in terms of health and well-being. I think it's very easy, isn't it? Particularly when you've got a lot of pressure on you, a lot of things you need to get done, to think, well, I haven't got time to take some exercise today. But actually, it's the exercise that brings the well-being, that brings the creativity, and actually, it's the exercise that makes the other hours so much more valuable.
Well, so I think what I've gathered from what you've said, the first one is you guard your time and you plan your time. And the second one is you look after your health and your well-being. And I love that statement that not all hours are created equally. I mean, it's something that many people will not really think of. They think, well, we have 24 hours, or I have 1 hour to go. I can do it 1 hour later. But just like you said, not all hours are created equally. We have times that we perform at our best. For some people, it's late at night. For some people, it's early in the morning. And first, I think recognizing what that time is, what that time of the day is it will be a major game changer in your life. Like knowing that I perform best at this time, so I'll make sure that this is not the time where I get bugged by social media, email notifications. It's just my time. I need to create a time to do what's right within this time frame. And yeah, health and well-being is another one that I totally agree with you on, because if you don't look after your health, I mean, if you, in the search for wealth, at a point in time, you have to exchange all that wealth for health, isn't it? But if you make sure that you're in the right state of mind, your body is working fine. It's your body will take you longer, and then, like some people say, if you want to perform well, just make sure you outlive other people, because the longer you live, the more you're able to make an impact in the world. I forgot to mention at the start, if you have questions, if you have comments, drop it on the comment section, and I'll be sure to put it on the chat box. At the close to the end of the interview, we'll give you some opportunities to ask questions. So I'll be posting the questions at the moment, but we'll not be addressing those questions close. We'll be addressing them close to the end so that we don't lose track of the discussion. I can see some comments coming in already. You're going to say something, Roger. Go for it.
Yeah, one of the other habits that I like to focus on is writing. For me, the content is something that I like to work on. I like to think of it as when I'm going to be giving a talk, or if I'm going to be working with some customers, It's rather like having a stove with a number of pots just coming to the boil, and this one here needs a bit of cooling, this one here needs a bit more time, this one here needs to just be switched off and allowed to cool. I find that some of the talks that I'm working on and things like that, the ideas I'm working on, need some time to come to fruition. So blogging is something I'm really passionate about. It's the writing and the blogging. So just writing down the ideas and thoughts that I've got that are coming through helps, just articulating them and putting them into print just helps me to work through and process them. So that I think it was Hemingway who said, "There's no such thing as great writing. There's only great rewriting." So my initial writing and my blogging is really my initial version, and then when I'm ready to take that thing into public, as it were, then I'll take it and I'll work on it some more.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because although I don't do blogging more, sometimes I do post, and I find out that what I originally started off with is probably 50% different from what I post at the end, because when you write, you read through, you rewrite, you read through, and I've written a book, and there are times I just have to keep refining it, and that's what, like, just like you said, is something that some people call layered thinking. You start with skeletal framework, and then you add flesh on it, and sometimes just by starting with that skeletal framework, you just get this idea from there that you're able to add to it, and it just makes it beautiful. And I must commend you on your blog. I was going to talk about that. On your website, your blog has been consistent since, was it April of 2017? You have that consistency, and that's something that, although you've not put it as one of your values, I guess is one of your values, because if you slipped up and you didn't do it 1 month, no one might notice, but you just have that consistency, and maybe you can tie up with integrity as well. It's like, this is your inner value. I want to do this. So yeah, well done with that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Just so I asked this question at this point in time, so because I think it's most relevant. Someone asked the question that, are you flexible with the times of the morning, with what you do with the times of the morning? Let me ask the question: are you flexible with what you do those times, especially in the morning? Because we're talking about your time before 11 a.m.
Yeah, yes, it's not cast in stone. It's a flavour. I like to try and protect those times as much as I can. Some of my customers, actually, their most available time is at one. In fact, I've got a meeting on Wednesday. I think it's at 8 o'clock. It's the time that I connect with this particular customer or client, because that works best for them. And so, if an early start is better, then that's fine. It varies from day to day. There's no fixed routine in the morning there. It's whatever needs to be done. But I do try and prioritize also the big tasks. Sometimes when we have our to-do list, and we can say, well, that one there, I'll save that one till later. I'll just knock a few of these out. But actually, the most effective way, the research shows that the most effective way of dealing with those big tasks is actually to do them first. Get them out of the way first.
Oh, cool. Right. So, next question I wanted to ask you, Roger, because just like the start, I was talking about it, that people talk about passions, and like you said, you're passionate about purpose. But we know that it's not always a smooth sail, and what I've heard someone say is that passion is what will fuel you. Passion is what will carry you through the difficult times. So people think if you're passionate about something, then that means everything will be fine. But just for our learning and for the learning of the audience as well, can you tell us about a time that was rather challenging for you, or a difficult time, and how did you go through it? Because that's how we learn. I mean, we learn from people's experiences, don't we? Is there anyone in particular that you wanted to share with us today?
That's an interesting question, really. There's a couple that I could probably share. There's when I moved into working for myself, that was quite a challenging time in my life. I was actually sales engineer. I was in an engineering sales role, selling control systems into the nuclear industry. So for nuclear power stations, that a lot of them were being decommissioned, helping to decommission them, and those kind of things. And my previous career, this same place, prior to this, I'd been a project manager. Well, there was a downturn in the nuclear requirements for nuclear. So I was given an option. I could either take a job back into projects, or I could take a voluntary severance. And what I chose to do, I'd moved on from project management because I wanted to move on to something new. And so I chose to step out. On the Friday was the first. I was actually in the meeting with somebody from the British Nuclear Industry Forum in the morning. The lunchtime, I was brought in to have this conversation. And on the Monday, I went. They gave me the weekend to think about it. And I said on the Monday, I went in and I said, "Right, I'm going." You can. Well, in fact, what I actually said was that I'm going, but not just yet. I just landed a new inquiry for a piece of work, and I said I want to hang on just for another week to make sure this gets started properly, that I can hand over what I've learned so far to somebody else. And then I'm going to go and start my own thing. I knew that if I didn't start my own thing then, I probably never would. I remember, I don't know if you've ever seen Joyce Meyer as a speaker. She's a lady who speaks she's an American lady, got a fascinating journey that she's been on herself, and a fascinating ministry. And I got a note that dropped through the letterbox over the weekend saying, "Today is your day of new possibilities, of new beginnings."
Okay.
it was a challenging time because only a couple of years before that, I'd moved house. I'd cleared the mortgage on my previous house, and we invested in a new property, which took mortgage. I just bought my daughter about 18 months before, a pony, because she was passionate about horses. Mm-hmm. So now I've got a mortgage and I've got a pony to look after, and I've just given away my steady income. So that season for those next few years, as I started this new career, and on the Friday morning, I had no idea I was going this way. by Monday morning, I knew that was where I was headed. So that was really quite a challenging season for me. Another journey, just very briefly on this one, is the journey that I'm going through with my wife, Sue. Sue's going through some cancer treatment. And that in itself, for anybody who's been involved in that process, can be a really, really challenging time. We made the choice at the beginning of this journey to stay cheerful, because by staying cheerful throughout it all, that gives us the best opportunity, the best chance of coming through this successfully. So let's just stay cheerful. A deliberate decision. And whenever we feel ourselves not being quite so cheerful, we just remind ourselves of that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I wish Sue all the best with our treatment. I mean, we have to adopt that attitude of gratitude, isn't it? Because it's very easy to focus on things that are not going on right, that we lose sight of every other thing that is going on right. And yeah, I heard about a story of a chap as well that he said he was having some problems in his marital life with his relationship, and he decided that he was just going to focus on the things that were going on well. So he decided to open a gratitude journal, and he started writing every day one thing that he was appreciative of in his wife. And he said by the end of the year, he gave her the gift. And she said that was the best gift that he had ever given her. But to him, that was the best gift he had ever given himself, because then his relationship was much better. He saw his wife in a different way. Instead of looking for the faults, he was looking for the good things. So every day, even if he had to look hard, he had to look for one thing in particular that he was appreciative of. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, even though it's a personal story, you said that you decided to be cheerful from the start, and that's a game changer for many of us, having that attitude of gratitude even when we go through difficult and challenging times. So let's flip the script around a bit, and then let's talk about something that you're very proud of, a moment or an achievement or something that you've done before that you're very proud of.
Probably my proudest achievements, I can think of two or three. The top of the list is marrying Sue, or at least getting her to agree to marry me. Soulmate for life, and we just love each other to bits. My two lovely children, they're making a fabulous journey through life. Both of them make me really, really proud. They're doing remarkably well, and I'm just really proud of both of them. Probably another achievement. We all have fears, don't we?
Yes, we do.
I tend to try and face my fears where I can, and just come at them head on. We were talking before we came on air about what fears, and one in particular was a fear of heights. I'm not paranoid about it, but it's something I'm really quite cautious about. Heights. I'm not very good with heights, so I decided to do a parachute jump. a solo static line parachute jump, jumping out of a perfectly good Cessna at 3,000 feet. And so that was really quite a challenge. I can remember sitting in the doorway, my feet dangling in midair, with this Cessna with and all I could see for miles. It was a remarkable sight. And then when the instructor said jump, and I just threw myself out of the plane, that was quite a those fear barriers that we face.
Did you throw yourself out, or did he have to push you? Because I think if I'm the one, I would wait for him to push me. Because
a funny story, and if you've ever heard Will Smith talk about this, he did a tandem jump, and he was saying that he was told that what they do is they count. Right, we're going to go down. You're going to jump in 3, 2, push. Do that is because, but normally when they get to 1, people go so they push them out before they get to 1.
Wow. And how did you feel? How was the landing? I've heard you talk about the landing before, but I want you to tell us about the landing again.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It was one of these ram air parachutes, so it's not the roundel that you have to, you land and you roll over. We did that. We did all the training, the practice on how to land and how to roll over and soften the impact. But honestly, when I jumped out of the plane, the first thing I had to do was get the lines untangled. They managed to get tangled as I was emerging from the at 3,000 feet, you're spinning your feet around to try and untangle these lines. That was quite exciting. Coming down, we turning left and right, just navigating our way around was so exhilarating. But as we came into land, it was almost just as slow as just walking downstairs and stepping off the bottom step.
Wow.
It was a brilliant experience. Absolutely brilliant. If you haven't had a go, I'd absolutely recommend it.
I haven't, and I think I'll definitely do it just for that feeling. And sometimes, I mean, the things that we think that we fear, when we do them, then we just be like, why have I been running away from this all along? Yeah, so it's something I'm definitely going to do. I'm going to do skydiving or something, or jump a parachute jump or something like that. I will definitely do it at some point. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing that. You talked about your marriage to Sue, you talked about your 2 children, and you talked about your jumping from the plane. I know that you also shared this moment that you had something with the PSA, which is the Professional Speakers Association. What was that about? Are you able to tell us about that? And I'll share the picture as well when you do.
Okay, so is this the thing about the speaker factor competition that I entered?
Yeah.
This was really quite an interesting journey. And really, it was one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of challenges, the biggest challenges I faced. When I started when I started my journey of professional speaking, standing on the stage and giving talks, the award I've got there wasn't for winning; it was for becoming a finalist.
Yeah,
I learned a lot. I was able to engage in 2 heats. You could enter twice in 2 different areas. The first time I entered was in a heat. I was in the northwest in Manchester, and I did quite well. I came 3rd in the heat out of 3 people. Actually, to be strictly true, I came. There were 4 of us that entered, but 1 didn't turn up. So,
okay.
and the reason for that primarily was that I got about 30 seconds into the talk, and I just forgot everything I was going to say. My mind went a complete blank. I managed to catch it and carry on, but I was just a complete blank. So I then entered a second time at another area, another region, and I can remember that morning. The morning of this event in the evening, and I was practicing my talk, and I thought, why are you putting yourself through this? Why don't you just give up and do something else? Get yourself an orange overall and go down to B&Q or something. And I was anyway. I did stay the course. I went along. I entered the heat that evening, and this time I won.
Wow.
It was that perseverance thing.
Yeah.
I could tell you more about all that, but it was persevering and actually going through that process of standing on stage in front of fellow professional speakers and having nothing to say. It was quite a challenging experience, but then persevering got me onto the stage at the annual conference.
Yeah, I mean, everyone gets that fear. I think professional speakers even have that fear more, that fear of going blank when they're on stage. And as you all know, like the fear of speaking is probably the the most common fear. I think it's called glossophobia. It's listed as one of the most common fears in the world. Still on the
But
speaking issue.
there's a
Yeah, you're
friend
going
of
to
mine.
say something.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine who wrote, or a couple of friends, who wrote a book called Death Came Third. And the reason for the title is there was a survey that was done on what
Yeah.
you fear the most. And in that survey, death came third. The first two
Wow.
fears were public speaking and networking.
Wow. Yeah, so still focusing on those two, like especially public speaking. I once had someone, his name is Roddy. He said, get better at speaking, because if you get better at speaking, that means you're getting better at life. As professionals, what would you say? I mean, is the role of being a good speaker in your professional journey?
I think there are some people for whom speaking is their professional life. There are some people for whom speaking is part of their professional life. And there are some people for whom it is just part of life. And I think my personal view, being able to articulate your thoughts effectively is a very valuable skill. That whether it's in a meeting and it's just talking to your colleagues, or whether it's standing up to give a talk at an event or a wedding or something of that kind, but just being able to articulate your views, get them into a structure that people can access, so that people can understand and people can. So speaking is about getting this thought in your mind into words that you can articulate, that other people can hear, that are then going to form a thought in their mind. And how do you make sure the thought that emerges in their mind is the thought that started off in yours? And that just process, that being able to articulate your thoughts and ideas in such a way that people can access them and understand what you're trying to say is so important and valuable.
I agree with you. And so I once heard someone say that the size of your vocabulary is not as important as your ability to actually use your words to influence people. So sometimes people think, yeah, I mean, I can speak naturally. I know so many words in the English language. I know how to phrase sentences, which is good. And I know how to articulate my thoughts, but probably not as important as you using your words to actually make people take action, which is something that you talk about a lot. And coming from your background in engineering, I once heard you speak on it in one of your videos that the thing that is good about engineers is they are very good with design, but they're not very good with people. So, like you said, the second thing was networking. Again, what's the place of connections? I mean, in your life journey, how would you say that connection is having the right connections? What benefits can we get from having the right connections as professionals?
That's an interesting question. I think most of the people that I do business with are people that I've got to know either in a networking environment, or I've had an opportunity to talk to them. I think most of the professionals that I work with regularly, my accountant, my business coach, the people I work with on a day-to-day basis are people that I've got to know. There's this process, isn't there? Meet, like, know, trust. I don't know if you've heard of that process.
No, I haven't.
You once you've met them, you get to like them. Of those people that you get to like, you'll get to know them. Those people you get to know, you can end up trusting some of them. And it's working through that process of meet, like, know, trust that is so important. And that's what networking gives you the opportunity to do.
Yeah. And you won't, I mean, if you don't get up and get out of the house, you probably might not meet people. I know people think, oh, I can find people on Facebook, but there are times you actually need to get up, get out of the house, meet people outside of your sphere. So, for example, you're an engineer, you shouldn't just go to the meetings of chartered engineers. You should actually go to other meetings. And I think that's some of the things you get from places like PSA. You meet people outside your sphere, and that's how you grow your network. And as we all know, your network is really your net worth. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was just going to ask you, because I know that you are passionate about leadership. And just in the lead up to the next question, why are you so passionate about leadership? I mean, some people will be like, yeah, leadership, we know about leadership, but do you have any personal experience with it, or have you been um, under some form of bad leadership, or have you had an opportunity to lead that you felt you could have done better? Why are you so passionate about leadership?
I think the journey to leadership started when I was managing engineering projects. So as a project manager, I found that the engineers, as I've said, it was engineering project management. Engineers are brilliant with designing, creating, building, but they're not very good with people. They're not very good in the large part. Certainly the engineers that I've met, I am one, I count myself in this category, are not naturally very good with people. They're more familiar. When you design a machine, it does what it's told. When I create a control system to control a machine, it'll do what it's told. People, they have opinions and they might push back and disagree. So what I found was that you can manage things, but you need to lead people. And that in the context of managing a project, what I found was I discovered, as I looked at the project managers around me, as I looked at the projects that were going off around me, that there was a key differentiator between success and failure often had a lot to do with those leadership skills. Now, when I started my career, a lot of the books that you get at airports and transport lounges would be on management, The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker, those kind of.
Yeah.
But then in the 90s, we started to see some books coming out on leadership. That was really where it kind of turned for me. I remember going on some courses around that time, back in the 80s. Project Manager as a Leader was one of the courses, one of the pieces I went on. John Maxwell started his writing career around that time, and he started coming out with a variety of books, one of which is Developing the Leader Within You, and that was republished a couple of years ago to Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. That he reworked, I don't know, 70% of the book or 80% of the book or something got reworked, but working through the 10 key elements of leadership. And so what I found is that if you're passionate about a purpose, the most effective way of getting people alongside you to help with that purpose, to get them aligned, it involves leadership skills. It involves a number of parameters that leadership will enable you to bring. Because at the end of the day, leadership is either positional or it's relational. What I mean by that is that people who get appointed to a position of leadership, they think, well, now I've got the job title, I better get on with it. They don't necessarily know. I've found a lot of people who have got themselves in fairly senior leadership positions, but never had a single day's worth of training on how to be a leader. So I started I spent hours and hours and hours reading, researching, finding out about leadership, and then sharing that information with those around me so that they can be more effective leaders. There was a study, and I think it was an American study, that showed that over 50% of the working population had left a job at one point because of the person they worked for. People start a job because they love the job, and they quit because they hate their leader. So surely we can do something about that. So leadership is relational. It's not just about having the position. It's about having relationship with the people around you, so that you know what's going on in their lives and how you can help them to engage with this mission most effectively. It's about achieving results. It's about helping people develop themselves so they can become better leaders. There's so many aspects to how we can become leaders that I could go on for hours.
I know. This is your sweet spot, isn't it? But a question I just wanted to ask, because it's a question that comes up in people's minds, and they probably they don't have an answer to it. The question is, because you just like you mentioned, like a lot of people find themselves in leadership positions, but they don't have training for leadership. Now the question is leadership a science? Because then they say, okay, the solution is I'll just go and do a master's degree in leadership or something, or is it an art? What's your opinion on that? Is it something that you learn from people by trial and error, or is it something that you can just go grab a degree in leadership and then bang on, you're the next good leader? What do you think about that?
I think courses are helpful. I think there are so many sources that are helpful for us to improve our leadership skills. Courses are going to be one of those. Experience is going to be another of those. I think that certainly by studying, it's going to help you to figure out. It's going to help point you in the right direction. I think leadership is about getting to understand the people around you. leadership. I used to know a Scottish guy, and he one of his favourite phrases is "better felt than telt." Let me tell you about alignment. This is one of my passions is alignment. If you take a block of iron, then all it's a block of iron. It does nothing. It doesn't particularly do anything on its own. But if you get a magnet and you stroke that along, then within the block of iron there are these things called zones, and they're all pointing in different directions. They're all magnetized, but pointing in different directions. So there's no magnetism involved. Once you start to get those zones aligned, now that block of iron is turned into something that can be used as in a compass. It can give you direction. It can be used as a motor and give you drive. Once people are aligned in a common direction, focusing on a common purpose, then you can achieve so much more with the same team.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm part of a group, and I saw a post that someone put today, and he said, a team is not a group of people that work together. A team is a group of people that trust each other. And just like you said, when people align, I mean, the power is beautiful, because the results are not just additional. It becomes more like a synergy, isn't it? It's not just 1 + 1 = 1. It's like 1 + 1 = 11 when people are aligned and in the same direction. Just because we're running close to the end and I have a lot of questions from the audience, I just ask you, tell us about your book, because you've talked about leadership. What then is prize-winning leadership? About your book, Prize-Winning Leadership, because someone might say leadership is good enough. Then what is prize-winning leadership? Like, is there leadership that's prize-winning? Tell us about it.
So prize-winning leadership is about winning your prize. So what's your prize? Well, I describe the prize as this inspiring image of the future that produces passion in people and turns have to into want to. I describe leadership as looking beyond the horizon. So the leader is somebody who sees further than other people see and can see beyond the horizon, and then starts to galvanize the team together to help them to figure out where they're heading. So if I wanted to go from where I am in Staffordshire to London, I can either head across to the M6, go down the M6, M5 into London, or I could go down the M6 onto the M1. I could go across country and go down the M1 that way. But the point of it is we need to decide whether we're going east or west. I could do either and get to London in a similar time. But if some go east and some go west, then we're going to be a right pickle. So it's about getting aligned, isn't it?
Yeah. Grand. So can you tell us about, because you definitely have people that you look up to. Who then are your mentors? Who are the people that have inspired you?
So before I come on to the mentors, just to say prize-winning leadership, just to explain what that's all about. The leadership starts off with inspire. So what inspire? Starts off. So what's your inspiration? We then have imagine. So imagine is looking beyond the horizon. We then have 3 things that help you to achieve that. There's going to be interact, influence, and implement. So you need to interact with the people around you. You need to understand them to be able to interact with them. You need to be able to inspire them to become alive. And then you need to implement your dream. And so I have this thing which is called a next exciting win, something new, do something new, which is your next. And finally, there's increase. How do you grow so that you're ready to take things to the next level? So that's really what prize-winning leadership is all about.
And if we wanted a copy of your book, where can we find it?
It's on Amazon.
Okay, cool. How much is it listed for? I always want to know.
This is $11.99.
Say that again. Sorry.
$11.99 for that one. There's other books on there. There's Speaking on Purpose. There's Mastermind on Purpose. There's a few on there. They're at various prices.
So I will definitely check it out, and I'll ask you all to do the same as well.
There's an audio book and there's a Kindle version as well. But who are my mentors?
Yeah.
There's probably going to be. I would imagine John Maxwell is going to be one of the first people that I turn to. I've a lot of his books. He's been a real inspiration to me on my journey in understanding, unpacking, and getting to grips with what leadership's all about. A leader that I find absolutely inspiring is a chap called Craig Groeschel. He's a pastor, runs a church called Life Church in Oklahoma, and I just love spending time. So there's John Maxwell. Thank you for that. You've probably got a picture of when I was with Craig as well, have you there somewhere?
Yeah, I do.
Then Patrick Lencioni, I love his work. He's written a number of books. Alan Mullally is a real inspiration. He's a guy who was originally at Boeing and then went on to spend time with Ford and turned Ford around. Actually, that picture there is fascinating. That's with when I was with the team at Life Church in Oklahoma. They invited me across for a week to spend some time, and that's one of the events that we had. So there's Craig and there's me and there's a girl called Kat from Australia who were there to meet with the team. So those are a few of the people that have inspired me the most.
Great. And as a follow-up question to that, then, do you have any favorite books or quotes that you wanted to share with us?
Favorite books, probably after the Bible, which is always a source of inspiration. There's John's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, a classic. And I've probably got about, 15, 20 of his books. Good to Great by Jim Collins is another really, really good book. One of my top tips for you is Marketing Isn't About You. A brilliant book written by my son, Adam Fairhead. Again, you can find that on Amazon. So the book American Icon, which is written about the story of Alan Mullally and how he worked with the Ford team and how he turned around. Gordon Bethune, he's written a book about how he worked with Continental Airlines. There's Bob Iger wrote a book, and that's called over here. It's called The Ride of a Lifetime. He was the chief executive of Disney, and he's from ABC and then into Disney and taking that role on. Inspirational leaders, all of them.
Great. I mean, I've taken some of the names of those books down from you earlier, so I'll definitely be checking them out. I love the story of Alan Mullally, particularly how he transitioned from Boeing to Ford. And I remember when he said the company was struggling, and then they came to pick him up from the airport. And when he got to the car park, he found out that all the executives were not even using Ford. And it was like, how do you want to sell Ford where you don't even use Ford? I mean, yeah, he went through a difficult and challenging experience, but he made that company, that great American company, where it is today. So yeah, it's a book I'll definitely want to read as well. So just moving on as we begin to round off, can you tell us about some of your hobbies, or can you show us what are some of the things that you do in your spare time when you relax? Because I know it's not all about speaking. There are times that you just wind down and relax.
Hobbies are probably I like to read. My wife keeps moaning at the number of books I've got. So reading is a top hobby. Walking, we like to get out in the countryside and spend some time walking, sometimes together and just enjoy the countryside. Other times I find it a really creative time. If I'm working on something and trying to think something through, going for a walk often helps. Music is an absolute passion, from playing the violin for many, many years through to the last 10 years I've been playing bass guitar, and teaching both violin, piano and keyboard has been part of my journey. So those are probably my top hobbies.
I know that you have your violin at hand. Are you able to just play us a quick tune? Is that something?
Yes, I can. If you'll bear with me, let's just see if we can get a tune out of this. Something a little bit jazzy, perhaps.
Yeah.
Summer. It's summer. Let's have a bit of summertime. Or a jazzy number would be something like. That sort of thing.
Wow, thank you. I think the violin is one of the most difficult instruments to learn, isn't it? I think it requires a lot of finesse.
I think all instruments are difficult. They just have a different level of difficulty. So I wouldn't like to. I think that each instrument has its own challenges.
Yeah, but I think something about things like playing instruments, writing, I think they just help to bring out that creativity in you, don't they?
I think so. Yes. What my most I think probably the most enjoyable event or season I was in was some years ago. I was playing in a band. I was playing electric violin in a band. I've got two electric violins. One's a 4-string and one's a 5-string. And
Mm-hmm.
I for this particular season, I was in the band to do the harmonies and to do some bits of improvisation. So I'd harmonise when people were singing, but when they take an instrumental verse, I just go off and do some improv, and I love doing that. I just loved doing that kind of thing.
Cool. Just for the sake of time, the last question I'm going to ask you, and then I'll go to the questions from the audience, is Roger, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to be known for? I mean, when you even if it's when you leave this world, what if you want if people remember Roger Fairhead, what would you want them to remember about you?
I think probably I'd like people to say that I did something differently because of something that Roger inspired me to do.
Hmm. That's a great one. For people to say that Roger inspired me to do this. I did something beautiful because of what Roger inspired me to do. And that might not be, it might be in different ways through your blog, through your speaking, through your books. You know, you never can tell. And that's why I try to tell people like, do something that goes beyond you, do something that will outlive you, whether it's writing a book, you never can tell whose life is going to change somewhere down the line. It might be 10 generations after, you never can tell. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing all these nuggets of wisdom with us, Roger. There was a question from the audience, and I found that rather interesting. The question was, hi Roger, which comes first for you as a leader? Is it your staff or your clients?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? It's I think it's like, which of my kids do I love the most?
Mm,
It's they're both important.
yeah.
The staff are important they need to be engaged with the mission and the ministry. The clients, they need to be served. There's a brilliant quote by Seth Godin who
Hmm.
said, in your work, don't find customers for your products, find products for your customers. So
Hmm.
understand what your customers, what your clients, what they need, and then find ways of serving that need and getting the team together to enjoy the journey of doing that.
All right. So the answer is you should love both of them just as equally, isn't it? But always make sure that you're thinking about what they need. Is that what it is?
It's got to be, yes. It's investing in the all stakeholders. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, one of the pieces that you'll find in prize winning leadership about implementation looks at cost, quality, and time as the traditional project outcomes. But then there's staff, stakeholders, and sundry. There's the staff that are going to be doing the work. There's the other stakeholders in the process, and any sundry activities that will come up as risk management and that kind of thing.
Hmm. Thank you. The other question is, how did you overcome that inertia of stopping what you've always known to do and starting something totally new? That was when you're talking about the points where you transition from steady income to working for yourself. Because I know some people say that the greatest thing about entrepreneurship is that you're the boss of your own time, but the worst thing about entrepreneurship is that you're the boss of your own time. But yeah, how did that? I mean, for someone who perhaps wants to leave the regular 9 to 5, wants to switch to entrepreneurship, how do you overcome that inertia? Or someone wants to start something totally new, how do you overcome that inertia?
Well, just get started. Just make a start. For me, I think I tend to be an early adopter. I tend to like getting into new things. I was always the one who wanted to try the new project. So if I was always the one who'd hand over my project to somebody else who loved those snagging lists. I used to hate them, but a colleague of mine loved it, so I'd hand over my projects to him before closing the project, and then get on with the new thing. So I tend to be drawn to that space anyway. But I think the only way of starting is to start.
Hmm. The only way of starting is to start. Wow, it's 1 hour already, and I can't believe that time just went so fast. But it's been a productive hour, and I've learned so much from you, Roger. I'm sure everyone that is watching live and people that will be playing this on the replay or perhaps listening to this as a podcast will also learn so much from you. Thank you so much for taking out time with us today. And I'm sure you've got a website. I've just put it there scrolling on the screen to visit your website, www.rogerfairhead.com, where they can find out more about you, where they can get a link to your blog and to find out about how they can access some executive services that you provide. Thank you so much for your time. And as I begin to sign out, it's the same thing I say every time. We'll be here same time last Sunday of the month. Until we meet again, just make sure that you keep living with passion and purpose. We will see you later. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye now.